We almost got divorced during our last car purchase. At least that's how it felt to me. The tension was thick, voices were raised, tears were shed, and all over a car we could absolutely afford. Why would two financially secure adults have a near relationship ending argument over a purchase that was well within their means? The answer has nothing to do with spreadsheets and everything to do with mindset. And that's what we're diving into today: how to shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, and why it matters more than any number in your bank account. Hi, and welcome to Her Honest Money Talk, where we believe in living wealthy and living well for independent women. I'm your host, Hazel Secco, a certified financial planner, mom of two little ones, and the founder of Aligned Financial Solutions. If you're new here, this show is for decision making women who've worked hard, climbed the ladder, and still wonder, is my money working as hard as I do? And if that's you, you're in the right place. Last week, we talked about calculating your enough number, that amount that would give you the freedom to design a work optional life. But here's what I've learned after years of working with successful women. Sometimes the biggest barrier to financial freedom isn't your income or your investments. It's what's happening between your ears. You can have all the money in the world and still live in scarcity. Or you can have a modest nest egg and live in abundance. Today, we're exploring how to recognize a scarcity mindset, where it comes from, and practical steps to shift towards abundance thinking. So, let me tell you a little bit more about the car purchase I mentioned in the beginning. My husband and I both grew up with a mindset of scarcity. We were taught that money should be saved efficiently and spent cautiously because it's hard earned. And there's wisdom in that approach to a point. But when we were shopping for a new car pre COVID, something in me snapped. Even though we were financially secure with healthy savings and income well beyond what we needed, I completely flipped out. I was upset. I was angry. I was emotionally out of control, all because we spent money on something I deemed not mandatory. I kept thinking, we already have a car. We don't need a new one. This model has a better engine than we need, technically. We could get by with less. We can be more efficient with what we save on that car for something smarter that can add more into our net worth spreadsheet. But here's the thing: we weren't getting by. We were doing great financially. The car was well within our budget, and our old car was becoming unreliable, potentially putting our safety at risk. Like the car's trunk door refused to open, and we basically couldn't use that car for grocery shopping because we had to put the grocery bags through the front seat as the trunk was not usable. It was just ridiculous. We ended up always using the other car available. So, what was the point of maintaining the car with a broken trunk door? And sometimes engine didn't start, which freaked me out during this one of these winter days when I drove a little farther away and then it was snowing at that time. So, it made me super scared. So, we both decided that buying a new car is the right thing to do. So obviously, the freaking out portion and snapping was not about the car. It was about the deeply rooted belief that spending money, even on something valuable, was somehow wrong or dangerous. Like, as long as I don't have to spend it, like, if I can survive as a human being without spending that money, probably I didn't need that. And as I reflected on this reaction, I realized how this scarcity thinking was affecting not just our finances, but our relationship and even how we would be raising our children. Most of us don't develop our money beliefs in a vacuum. They're inherited, learned, and reinforced throughout our lives. For me, my scarcity mindset goes back to watching my mom struggle as a single parent. She was married, but financially single parent because everything financial fell on her shoulder. I vividly remember her frustration and anger when bills came due, that feeling that all the financial burden was on her shoulders. And I was a child, but I couldn't help and I didn't feel very secure as to where we're going to end up being. I was really anxious majority of my life, worrying I could be potentially homeless any point in time. I mean, it wasn't super rational, but it wasn't made up either. I felt awful about that. I felt awful that my mom had to deal with that financial burden by herself. And somewhere along the way, I internalized the belief that spending money was a burden, something that created stress and negative emotions. Maybe you have your own version of this story. Maybe you grew up during an economic recession or watched your parents fight about money or experienced a financial setback that left you feeling vulnerable. These experiences shape our relationship with money in profound ways. They create neural pathways in our brains that trigger automatic responses, like my meltdown over the car purchase. But here's what's important to understand: these responses might have made sense in the past. They might have even protected you during difficult times. But if they're no longer serving you, if they're keeping you from enjoying the wealth you've worked so hard to create, it's time to examine and perhaps rewrite them. A scarcity mindset doesn't just affect how you feel about money, it influences how you behave with it. When you're operating from scarcity, you make decisions based on fear rather than opportunity. You focus on avoiding loss rather than creating gain. And this approach has real consequences. You might avoid necessary investment in yourself, your business, or your family. You might struggle to enjoy the wealth you've accumulated. You might experience significant anxiety around spending decisions, even when they're rational. And you might find yourself in conflict with loved ones who don't share the same fears. In my work with clients, I've seen this play out in numerous ways. One client refused to retire despite having more than enough saved because she couldn't shake the fear of running out. Another stayed in a toxic job because the salary was secure, even though she had multiple better opportunities. And then there's my own example, nearly damaging my marriage over a car purchase that made complete financial sense. It's the mindset, not the spreadsheet, that controls our actions. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping women live in abundance. Because having money and living in abundance are two completely different things. Now, I want to be clear about something. Shifting to an abundance mindset doesn't mean becoming reckless with your money. It's not about spending whatever you have without thought or planning. In fact, it's about finding balance, what I call the balance principle in financial wellness. Every life decisions require balance. Nothing is picture perfect 100% of the time. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that together. So think about health and fitness. You want to stay healthy, but obviously if you're obsessive to the point of unhealthiness, that's not ideal. It's good to enjoy delicious food and feel happy from those experiences, but we can't indulge too much where we're no longer able to enjoy because our health suffers. Everything is balance. The same applies to our relationship with money. There's a middle ground between hoarding every single dollar out of fear and spending carelessly without intention. An abundance mindset isn't about ignoring the reality of finite resources. It's about approaching those resources with a sense of possibility rather than limitation. It's about making conscious choices based on your values rather than unconscious ones based on your fears. So, how do we actually change our mindset from scarcity to abundance? Let me share some practical steps that have worked for me and for many of my clients. First, track your emotional responses to spending. After any purchase, especially ones triggering strong feelings, write down what you felt and why. This helps you identify patterns and connect your emotional responses to their underlying causes. For example, my emotional response to the car purchase felt like this isn't smart or this is not efficient. But when I dug deeper, I realized it connected to my childhood memories of my mom's anger and frustration about financial burdens. I felt guilty about spending on myself because as a child, I couldn't help my mom financially. So once you understand these connections, you can rewrite your narrative. This doesn't mean that you're denying your feelings, but rather we're interpreting it in different ways that serves you better. For example, I now tell myself, you did a great job spending on something that gives you comfort and safety. You deserve this. If I make a purchase that doesn't bring value or happiness, I still acknowledge. And then I move on. Because acknowledging and moving forward, even when I didn't do a great job, is just as important as giving myself praise. Once you do this pretty consistently for at least like a month, you're gonna find some type of patterns that you're noticing. Like at certain types of purchases, you're gonna be more likely to get triggered, for example. So make sure, try to do it consistently for, at least 2 weeks to 4 weeks so that you have an idea of like what's happening during certain, specific purchases. If you find this challenging, consider finding an accountability partner. It can be a close friend, a therapist, or, your significant other who can support your journey. So, my husband has become a fantastic accountability partner because we share our feelings about spending decisions and, bounce ideas off each other. This has not only helped us individually, but has strengthened our relationship and financial communication. Another powerful practice is creating new spending rituals that reinforce abundance thinking. So, when you make a significant purchase, take a moment to express gratitude for having the resources to do so. Acknowledge the value this purchase brings to your life. Like it's kind of like a celebrating rather than mourning about the purchase. You know, if you have a gratitude journal, that's a plus. It just makes you focus on something more meaningful than just spending money part and feeling good about money. Finally, consider working with a financial professional who understands the psychological aspects of money, or at least someone who cares about it. I don't necessarily coach or therapy my clients, but certainly, get these emotions and behavior patterns integrated when we make a decision about their money. Like I try to ask great questions to make sure that I am on the same page on why and how this decision was made, and if we didn't miss anything on the way. And that brings us to this week's freedom step: create a money emotion journal. For the next 7 days, record every financial transaction you make that triggers any emotional response, positive or negative. Often, try to be honest because, like, seriously, unless it's like $5, every purchase, most of the purchases create some emotional responses. So try to write down every single transaction in the beginning, especially. It's like harder to, understand what's causing what. So write down what you purchased, how you felt about the purchase, like whether anxious, guilty, excited, or happy, what memories or belief might be connected to that feeling, and a compassionate reframing of that situation. So, this simple practice brings awareness to your subconscious money patterns and begins the process of rewiring them. Remember, awareness is the first step to change. You can't transform what you don't acknowledge. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this thought. Your relationship with money is one of the most significant relationships in your life. Like any relationship, it can be healthy or unhealthy, supportive or destructive. A scarcity mindset keeps you in a constant state of fear and limitation, even when your financial reality doesn't warrant it. An abundance mindset opens you to possibilities, to joy, and to the true freedom that financial security can provide. The shift from scarcity to abundance isn't about having more money. It's about having a healthier relationship with the money you have. And that relationship affects everything from your stress levels to your closest personal connections. My journey from scarcity to abundance is ongoing. I still have moments where old patterns emerge, but with each conscious choice to approach money from a place of possibility rather than fear, the pathway to abundance becomes clearer and more natural. I'd love to hear from you. Have you experienced the tension between scarcity and abundance in your own life? What practices have helped you shift towards more abundant thinking? Share in the comments below or email me directly. I read every single message, and your experiences help shape future episodes. Next week, we'll explore another crucial aspect of creating a work optional life: how to align your financial decisions with your core values. Because when your money moves in the direction of what matters most to you, that's when true wealth emerges. Until then, I'm Hazel Secco, and this is her Honest Money Talk. Keep living wealthy and live well. You've got this.